Greetings, fellow Earthlings. Due to the uninvited and unwanted viral agent COVID-19, we still can't meet inside our amazing Zeiss Planetarium at the Chabot Space and Science Center. However, that doesn't mean we can't use Nature's Planetarium, also known as the Real Sky. And now that daylight savings time is finally over, we can easily step outside and simply tilt our heads back to see at least some of the amazing things I'll be pointing out tonight. I'm of course talking about the constellations. There are people, animals, and objects in the night sky. They have been there for millennia, but most people are unaware of them as they glide by unnoticed right over our heads every clear night. Tonight, we will fix this sad state of affairs and put you, the audience, on the first steps towards astronomical enlightenment. Begin! As you probably already know, the Earth has 4 seasons: spring, summer, fall, and winter. While the constellations also have seasons having to do with the Earth's yearly orbital path around the Sun. That and the fact that we can only see stars by looking away from the Sun at night, which changes our views of the stars throughout the year. Unfortunately, unless you're at a good dark sky site, most constellations will be somewhat hard to see fully, but most constellations have at least a few bright stars to help identify them, and the better your viewing location, the more you'll be able to see. A good first step to finding the constellations is done by knowing your compass directions. We can easily do this without a compass, using a star grouping that is quite easy to find: Cassiopeia, the Queen, also known as the Big W. Face the sky roughly 90 degrees to the right of where the sun has set, and look about one halfway up from the horizon to the top of the sky, and you'll see it. As you can see, Cassiopeia has 5 stars that make up the W shape, which is actually her throne. From this angle, it's upside down. The 6th star makes up the seat of the throne, which can be seen to have a rather unergonomic back. Off the tip of the more squashed end of the W, you might see another somewhat faint 7th star. Just connect the end of the W to that star and extend the line until it comes to the semi-bright star, which is named Polaris and is otherwise known as the North Star. It's the only star in the entire sky that stays pretty much right where it is, so no matter what time of night it is, or even what month of the year it is, all you need to do is face it. And you'll always be facing due north, with east directly to your right, west directly to your left, and south directly behind you. All of the other stars wheel around this pivot point anti-clockwise, making them appear to rise in the east and set in the west. This, of course, is an illusion caused by the Earth's spin, which gives the appearance that the stars are moving, when in fact it is the Earth that's moving. If you think of the Earth as a spinning top and you extend Earth's North Pole straight into the sky, it points almost directly at Polaris. Using Polaris, we found all the compass directions, but Polaris is also at the end of the Little Dipper's handle, whose official name is Ursa Minor, the Little Bear, and our next constellation. It's a bit faint, but from Polaris, you might be able to trace its curving handle to its bowl. The 2 brighter stars at the end of its bowl are called the Guardians because they seem to march around the North Star like protective sentries throughout the night. Here is Draco the Dragon with his squarish head, long neck, 2 short legs and feet, and a long tail which arcs gracefully over the Little Dipper. Just between Draco and Cassiopeia, we find our next constellation, Cepheus, the king, and yes, he is Cassiopeia's husband. At this time of night, he's upside down, but he's got a triangular crown, a squarish head with a pigtail at the base of his head, and he's smiling, 'cause he's the king. I like finding him by using the non-squashed end of Cassiopeia, which points directly to his face. To find our next constellation, let's first look at the asterism known as the Great Square. By the way, an asterism is not a constellation but merely a familiar star grouping. The brightest star of the square is the head of Andromeda, the chain lady. She's got 1 star as her head, a torso, and 1 arm pointing out away from her body with a couple of chains attached. The other foreshortened arm is curled down below, and she has one straight leg, while the other leg is up and bent at the knee. If your sky is dark enough, you might see a dim, fuzzy spot just off her knee. Binoculars can make it plain to see in even somewhat light-polluted skies. That's the Andromeda Galaxy, our nearest neighboring spiral galaxy at 2.5 million light-years from us, which makes it the furthest object that can be seen with the naked eye. It's on a collision course with our own Milky Way galaxy. But worry not. The collision won't happen for another 5 billion years, give or take a few hundred million. To continue, let's turn our view to the south, like so. This will flip everything we've seen to the north upside down and will enable us to find the rest of the night's major constellations more easily. To the left of Andromeda, we have her boyfriend Perseus, the hero. He's got a tall, thin, triangular hat, a head, body, legs, and feet. His right arm is curled up behind him, while his left arm is reaching out for Andromeda's upper foot. The other 3 stars of the Great Square make up the wing of our next constellation, Pegasus, the winged horse. His wing attaches to the rear end of his body, and he's got 4 legs, neck, and long horsey nose. To the right of Pegasus is Cygnus, the swan. It's got a pair of large sweeping wings, a long neck and nose. Its brightest star is called Deneb. To the right of Cygnus, we find Lyra, the lyre, a small Greek harp, and not a person who tells untruths. Its brightest star is the 7th brightest star in the night sky, Vega. Just below Cygnus in Lyra, we have the constellation Aquila, the eagle. He's a bit faint, but has a head and a beak, and its bright eye, Altar, 2 swept forward wings, a body, and a tail. The 3 bright stars, Vega, Altair, and Deneb, make up our next asterism, which we call the Summer Triangle. You'll recall I mentioned asterisms before with the Great Square. Though it's called the Summer Triangle, we'll be seeing this familiar star grouping through the remainder of fall before finally losing it to the daylight of the sun by the end of December. To the right of Lyra, we find our next constellation, Hercules, the strong man. That square is the asterism called the keystone, and from there you might be able to make out the rest of him. A man running along whilst brandishing a large club. Somewhat low above the southern horizon is a kind of invisible line where the zodiacal constellations can be found. This line is called the ecliptic, and is also where the sun, moon, and planets move along. This is why the zodiacal constellations were so significant to astrologers. Not that astronomy scientists believe in the pseudoscience of astrology, most don't, but astrologers were some of history's first astronomers, and for their early work, we are in their debt. Our first items on the ecliptic, just above the southwest horizon, are 2 bright stars that aren't stars at all, but planets, Jupiter on the right and Saturn on the left. If you get a chance, take a look at them through as big a telescope as you can. They are both rather spectacular. Hurry, though, as they disappear into the sun by next month, and won't be seen again until the wee morning hours of mid-July 2021. Just to the left of Saturn and Jupiter is our next zodiacal constellation, Capricornus, the goat. At first glance, he looks like a child's top or an upside-down pyramid, but as you can see, he's got a horn on his head, a body with legs, and a small tail. Our next constellation is Aquarius, the water-bearer. Though unless you're at a really good dark sky site, I'd skip trying to find him, as he is quite faint. As you can see, he looks like a man holding a vessel of water that's spilling as he runs along. Next up is Pisces, the fishes. Pisces is pretty faint, and you'd have to have a pretty dark sky to see it, but I had to mention it because it contains a planet we haven't seen since June of 2019, more than a year. Mars. Mars will appear as a fairly bright, somewhat reddish-colored star rising above the eastern horizon, and fortuitously will still be close to opposition, meaning Earth and Mars will be as close together as their orbits allow for this year. This gives our best views of the planet when looking through Earth-bound telescopes, which I again fully recommend. Our last zodiacal constellation and the last constellation of the night is Aries, the Ram. He's also somewhat faint, but as you can see, he has a small triangular head, body, cute little tail, and outstretched front and rear legs as though he was running around in the starry fields. One other thing. A few days from today, on November 16th through 17th, we will see the Leonids meteor shower with a peak rate of about 15 meteors per hour, and on December 13th through the 14th, the Geminid meteor shower will occur with an hourly peak rate as high as 150 per hour. Ought to be a good one. With a thin crescent moon during both showers, the viewing should be optimal. How nice. And that's it. There are other, smaller or fainter constellations out there which I encourage you to look for using a good book and maybe a pair of binoculars too. Speaking of good books, I cannot more highly recommend the book The Stars, A New Way to See Them by the author H.A. Rey, who you may know as the same author who wrote the Curious George books. Rey was a scientist who wasn't satisfied with the way modern star charts were drawn. The astroscientists were not interested in characters, objects, or stories behind the constellations, so for convenience, they just connected the brighter stars into weird geometric shapes, slapped on their Greek names, many of which would mean nothing to the common person, and left it at that. That's all fine and well for them, but for us regular folk, we're more interested in the fun stuff. If you really want to learn the constellations, get Rey's book, which can be purchased from Amazon for about $12. I'd also recommend getting a pair of binoculars before getting a telescope. Binoculars are cheaper and easier to use, and there are many wonderful deep sky objects that can actually be best seen with just a pair of binoculars that are noted in Rey's book. If you do want to get a telescope, ask us or research on the web how to make an informed purchase. Be warned, there are a lot of bad scopes out there with cheap components and shaky, muddy, fuzzy views that will disappoint you every time. A good scope will inspire you and your children to a lifetime of deep space exploration and appreciation of science and nature in general. If you're interested in getting into the hobby of astronomy, joining a local astronomy club can be most helpful. Chabot is partnered with EAS, the East Bay Astronomical Society, which has many activities and resources you'll find essential to help you get started in this amazing and beautiful study of our natural universe. Thanks for watching this video. If you like this content, be sure to click the thumbs up button, subscribe to our channel, and hit the bell notification icon to find out when new content has been uploaded. This will really help our channel to grow, which would make us all very happy. And we'll see you in the future!